Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafu anbiya wa mursaleen. Sayyidina wa habibina al-Mustafa Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin. Alhamdulillah, I'd like to welcome you all to the Awoke and Grand Folks broadcast or podcast. And so this show is really highlighting our elders and, having discussions, fruitful discussions, getting the wisdom from our elders. And alhamdulillah, we'd like to welcome you all who are tuning in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your presence. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us success in this broadcast and to make it beneficial for those who listen and those who may listen later. Ameen. So let's introduce our illustrious and esteemed panel. We have to my left, we have the great queen of Florida, Miss Joanne Thomas. Assalamu alaikum, Joanne.
Walaikum salam.
Okay, and up above me, we have another queen of ours, Sister Fatima of the British Virgin Islands. Is that right?
Mashallah, yes, you're right.
The queen of the British Virgin Islands. So we have a lot of royalty in the building today. And up into diagonally, I have Sister Fatima, the Queen of Canada and beyond. Alhamdulillah. So we have our esteemed elders here with our show today. And today's topic, we're going to be discussing how to deal with prejudice with love and compassion and mercy. Alhamdulillah. So that'll be our topic today. So we'll have a little discussion. And as always, our viewers are welcome to chime in the comment section, and also we have a time for question and answers, mashallah. So so today's topic, we'll get right into it. How do we deal with prejudice, and particularly prejudice against us as African American Muslims in particular, and then prejudice as Muslims in general that we receive from many people who are oftentimes ignorant of Islam, or they have a preconceived notion about what Muslims are and what they represent. And, it's very unfortunate, and I think part of it is our fault. Is that as long as Islam has been around in these Western in the Western Hemisphere, that there are people who are still vague, extremely ignorant about what Islam is, and sometimes that ignorance, propels them to say things that are very, hateful and full of disdain and all that kind of stuff. And then it prompts us to deal with it in a certain way. And of course, we are to deal with things with love and mercy and compassion. So this is what we're going to discuss, inshallah. So I want to ask each one of you queens a question. Can you think of a specific incident in your life as a Muslim woman and as an elder that where you experienced this kind of prejudice that would, made you feel like it made you feel a certain way, like offended or even threatened, or your safety was at risk? So we'll start with which queen wants to go first? So much royalty, I don't know. And I'm smart enough to know don't ask women about their age. So I'll let you guys go first. So since we have our Sister Fatima from the British Virgin Islands, she's a new on our show. We'll let her go first.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have never really experienced that, and coming from the Caribbean especially, so it's something kind of like a bit complex for me, But alhamdulillah, if we should look at each other as a living being, a soul, we would not have, such kind of atrocities. So, inshallah, as I go along in life and practicing the deen of al-Islam, I trust that I don't have to experience such. Ameen.
Okay, so Sister Fatima, the Queen of Canada, you go next, inshallah. The same question to you.
Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Auzubillahi minashaitanirrajim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Myself, as a Muslim, I think the only time I was actually in fear was shortly after I became Muslim. I became Muslim 8 days before 9/11, and I was at work. I worked in a hospital in a place called Regina, which is like a little cowboy type thing, a pretty redneck area. And when the staff found out I had become Muslim, they were quite aggressive towards me. And at one point, one of them tried to push me down the stairs. I think that was the only time I was actually scared. You know, I had a lot of people argue with me, but I'm not really scared for, being that way. I've had incidences where I had rocks thrown at me in that same town because it was pretty like conservative, really redneckish type people. So it was, but yeah, I used that to my advantage when I went back and confronted the person that hit me. So I used it as a learning experience, inshallah. But I was, other than that, I don't think I've been threatened and scared of my life. I'm not sure how I would handle that, and I really have a lot of compassion for my African American brothers and sisters that have to face this and be scared to go out and to send their kids to school. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So,
Okay, Miss Joanne, broadcasting live from Florida. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I can remember an occasion when I was in a convenience store, and it was a mixed neighborhood, and I had switched over from my regular clothing that I normally wear, to looking more Islamic. So they knew. And in the store, I was approached by the gentleman that was behind me. He came from behind me to stand next to me. And he said, that I was a terrorist and that was what I was a part of. And I told him, no, that's not true. I said, if you knew Islam, then you would know that I'm not part of that. And it was a little frightening at first because all the other customers started gathering around him. And he said, well, I know that you will die for Islam, so are you willing to die now? And I said, well, if need be. And with that, he walked away. But quite a few occasions, for some reason, they always seem to associate me, with terrorism. There were lots of times, where they would either, make fun of the way that I dress, or because, I just lived a completely separate life, from them. But I was made to feel uncomfortable quite a few times. And that was not only, the people that I would meet, in the street or in the store. There were some times I was made to feel uncomfortable, even with my family.
MashaAllah. In my experiences, I come out of the, I'm a product of, those 60s revolutionary movements, the Black Panthers, the, Black Liberation Army. And, and as a youth, I used to read books by, revolutionaries like George Jackson and Joanne Chesimard or Silas Shakur. So, and then I think our experiences as Black people in America, particularly in the urban areas, we just wasn't going for that kind of stuff where people just mess with us, and that those movements spawned us like we're not taking no mess from nobody, and then being a actual product of like hip hop culture, when it started to develop, early on, hip hop was about using the music as a message. So I mean, I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but I came up with a time like groups like Public Enemy and Down Productions and the Jungle Brothers, and they had these militant kind of stances and this pro-Black message in the music. So it was never an incident. It was never an incident where As a Muslim, we felt threatened. Then, with the influence of the Nation of Islam, who had like a paramilitary presence in the hood, and they would cater to things that it scared people where they didn't mess with black Muslims, and of course 9/11 changed a lot of things, because once the country was in panic and all of this stuff about Islam overall, and that these so-called terrorists, hijacked these planes and did all this. It was very, very tense in America. Even I remember a couple times being in certain areas. I was, I'm not the type to scare easily, but I remember going through a few towns, and I was like, there was like in Camden, we're surrounded by kind of these towns that are like, like South Jersey is is a hotbed for like, white supremacy, KKK members, working undercover as police and all these kind of things. And so I remember after 9/11, and they had like a vigil at this town called Gloucester. So Gloucester is notorious like for, prejudiced white people, like, and they never, even up until this day, people know like you don't go through that town at a certain time. I remember I had to ride through that town. It was like the weekend after like 9/11 was on a Tuesday. Like I think I was there through a Friday, just passing through, and like all of these American flags and all these pickup trucks was out there, and all these white folks with these little hats, and like I was like, I think that for that one moment I was a little fearful. I was like, man, let me get out of here. I'm glad I'm just passing through, so let me just duck down in my seat a little bit and just get on out of here, because I don't, I'm outnumbered. But overall, from my Islamic experience, we never really had an issue with like open prejudice or hatred against us, but we have seen it against our immigrant Muslim brothers and sisters who are don't have like a militant stance or haven't been subjected to the trials and tribulations that we as black people in America, that made us like resilient, that made us, taking uncompromising stances at sometimes, and have us with a mentality that, we fight the powers that be, that we take a stand against that kind of oppression. But I think now a lot of our Muslim brothers and sisters who are immigrants who've come from other countries, they've been subjected to, prejudices and nuances, like many of them, they've come into, like when they come to America, they move in remote places and they move around these people who on the surface may seem like they're good neighbors, but they have hatred in their heart. And there have been instances where they've been attacked. We have recently a young girl, I forget the town, is in New Jersey, but it's kind of a ways from us, that she had her hijab pulled off. Like this was last year. She was a teenage girl in high school, and she had her hijab pulled off. And then, you get stories that don't necessarily make social media about, acts of discrimination and acts of prejudice against Muslims. So I would like to pose a question, like, how much do you think that we are responsible for our immigrant Muslim brothers and sisters? And, sometimes they have a passive kind of attitude because in order to try to fit in and to assimilate, into American society, how much are we responsible in helping them to, make sure that, people are not actively prejudiced or discriminatory against them? How much are we responsible as African American Muslims to help them with that? So, Miss Joanne, I'll go with you first.
Well, we're as responsible as they would be if we were in their country or their land, because it really all boils down to, we're all Muslims and we should share the same responsibility, for each other. So if I was in their land, I would expect that from them. And I would think that, it would be me, trying to help them ease into the new life in America.
Okay, now second part of this question: do you think that they should have more responsibility of taking to initiative, to stand up for themselves, or is it do we do we have to help them along because we know the terrain here in America and we know what they're up against a lot of times that many of them may not have been you know you know privy to when they come to this country. They came, a lot of them, for business purposes and just to start over, and when they got here they probably didn't realize what America, the other America, not the one that they saw on TV, and they watch Baywatch and they watch all of these American shows and this American dream that they thought, and everyone is lavish and, everyone's living this, a house in the suburbs with a picket fence, 2 kids and a dog and, that kind of stuff. And then when they came, it was like a rude awakening for them, So how much, the second part of the question is how much are they responsible for, standing their own ground and standing up for themselves and not to be intimidated by people who would be prejudiced towards them?
Well, they bear the brunt of the responsibility of standing up for themselves because if you don't do for yourself, no one else will. So you have to put forth that effort first. And they can use, our help, but the primary responsibility is on them. They have to speak up. They have to take a stance because if not, people will walk all over you. They will take advantage of you. So you have to speak up and stand up for yourself.
Okay, Sister Fatima from the British Virgin Islands, and I've been told that I need to emphasize the part British. So, so the same questions to you. You don't need me to repeat them, do you?
No.
Okay.
What I think should happen is, if when they come to another country, they should fit themselves in with, for here I would say, with the locals and work together. I think it would be a better idea because the other communities would see the camaraderie and the oneness, and we would work together as a team instead of I'd speak for here. When they come, they kind of segregate themselves, and which is not a good idea because it's a very bad image and picture for the Deen of Al-Islam, because we are one, and it shows when we're in the mosque, but then when we're out of the mosque, it's something completely different. So we have to be that image that would show the people that we're together. And if people see that we're together, but then, would I bring a conflict? Well, if I trouble one, they would gang upon me. The others would gang upon me. So we need that kind of image.
Okay, Sister Fatima, the Queen of I was going to say Toronto, but you got the whole country.
Close enough.
Canada. You're the queen of the whole country.
I don't know Canada like that, but whatever. Actually, yes. I was just looking at some of the comments, and in a way, it kind of made me sad because it's kind of the reason I brought up this topic. I wanted to talk about this topic. As Muslims, we should want for each other what we want for ourselves. And I would like to see that we all feel safe, that we all have a smile. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ didn't particularly like some people. And he was the perfect man. But he still gave the Muslims their right. And that's something that we, especially me, as just someone with no knowledge, has to remember that I still have to give people their rights, still give them salams, still try to help them to the best of my ability. I can't hold everybody responsible for the plight that I may be in at that time. It's not their fault. I've seen a lot of immigrant women come over here. They're scared. They are so scared they can't even say salam. And I had to reach out to them. I had to be the one. I was getting upset they didn't say salam to me, so I had to really struggle with my own ego to reach out to them and find out how I could help her, how I could, raise my hand to them in sisterhood. But for me to say no because they did that, they weren't the ones. It's the system. It's shaitan. It's the fitna of Dajjal. Let's put the enemy where it belongs. Credit to the real enemy. That's who the enemy is, not each other, not you, a fellow Muslim. For us to have any, I can't even say the word, a characteristic of any hatred in our hearts towards another Muslim, that's not a good thing. That's really not a good thing. And I think that would tear us apart faster than anything else. Just my take on that.
Yeah, one of the good things we were talking before we went live, we were talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, and it was unfortunate because I noticed in the backlash of that movement, as many Muslims, immigrant Muslims, were really more willing to reach out to like communities like ours that are primarily, African American in urban areas, who are, impacted by some of the things that have taken place with some of the killings of, some of the, young black men in different cities that kind of spawned the Black Lives Matter movement, and it was good and bad because, at one point it was like, okay, you're finally seeing it. But then in another vein, it was like, where have you guys been all this time? Like, regardless of Black Lives Matter movement, we are bonded by La ilaha illallah, you know what I mean? And we come in all races, creed, colors and everything. And we were supposed to be, but because by virtue of this religion and how it's set up, that we were supposed to stick together, and we missed a lot of that. So, this topic that we're talking about, it has a lot of levels to it, because when we're talking about how to deal with prejudice, we're talking from many angles. One of them is from, the kuffar, some of them who are just ignorant, some of them are deliberately against us and hate us because of Islam. And then we have the prejudice that we have with each other, part of it that we're discussing. And then there's another level that we would like to talk about, that sometimes us as African American people having prejudices or inhibitions about other, races, that become Muslim, and in particular, I've seen people where if a white person converts to Islam, we're skeptical about their sincerity. In some instances, and case in point, I don't know if you brother, I'm sorry. I don't know if you all are familiar with the brother Shane Atkinson. Have you heard of him?
No.
We had him at the African American Summit, I think the first one. He's in North Carolina, but he grew up as like a redneck. Like, he grew up like racism was in his blood. Like, he told us a story about how his father had showed him when he was a little boy how to make a noose.
Wow.
So he was like embedded, like taught hatred for people because of the color of their skin. And now he's become Muslim. And mashallah, I mean, I haven't really heard anybody like doubting him or anything, but like, he's using his southern roots, like his redneck upbringing, and using it to convert white people to Islam, the people who come from that background, from the deep south. I forgot exactly where he's from, but it's in the south. But in the deep south, where white folks are still, the Confederate flags and that old way, white people are dominant, and how it was, they wait for that to come back, and so he's working on those kind of people. So when we talk about dealing with prejudice, at what point do this is a question, when we're dealing with it, particularly with us, amongst us as Muslims, at what, well, let's do it this part. We are where's the cutoff limit where we're using love, compassion, and mercy to deal with the non-Muslims, and then there's a point where we be like, we don't as Muslims, we don't let people run over. So there's a point like we got to push back if they persist. How do we? Where's the cutoff? If you understand what I'm saying, if that was so, Miss Joanne, you want to go?
Okay. Well, there is a cutoff point. When you reach that point where you really, just can't take anymore, where you have to stand up for yourself. Um, there's lots of prejudice, there's a lot of hatred, but you have to remember too, some of it is so embedded, um, and it has not changed. I don't think it's changed. I think that they hit it more, but it's more in the open now. Hatred is something that is taught. We're not born hating different people, different races. It is something that is taught along the way. And with that hatred taught, also you learn other things, how to be fearful, of certain situations. So it is something, that you may fear, but there comes a time when okay, I have to step up now. I have to handle this. But hatred is a taught situation. It's possibly taught from birth. So the indoctrination there begins very early. So it takes a while, to overcome that. Some people overcome it, some don't. And it's now that it's just out there now. They're very bold with it. So how far do you let them push you? At some point you have to draw the line.
Okay, Sister Fatima, Queen, Canada Queen, Canadian Queen.
I really like that. See, I bought a queen pin.
Yeah, yeah.
I just had to show that off today. It's like,
yeah, own your royalty.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It is hard on an individual basis. It is very hard. But then again, I always have to remember that non-Muslims are going someplace that, inshallah, I'm not. So to me, I actually cry for non-Muslims. Like I cry that they're going to go to that place. I was listening to my neighbors fighting all morning long. I had an older man and his older son. I heard them fighting all morning. I was crying because I could just imagine they're going to go to Jahannam like that. And it's like, that puts compassion in my heart. I mean, I've been on the other end. I've been a person that's not walking the right path, and I know how lost people get. So that gives me compassion for other people as a whole. Now that's a whole different matter. I have one of those instincts. Well, I'll help others more than I'll help myself. Like I'll get upset. I remember I was in Florida somewhere. I can't remember where it was called, and they had a Ku Klux Klan there. There was one on each corner, and they were in their white gowns and their caps, and people were getting pictures taken with them. I lost it. I said, "What the H are you doing? Like they're not tourist attractions, And I'll never forget the hate in that man's look in his eyes when he turned around and looked at me. It was like seeing the devil, And but these people, they're ingrained since children. There was a talk show, I can't remember who was the host, but they are ingrained children to be that way. They're brainwashed into being that way. Like this boy that did this in Buffalo. I mean, he probably was a raised that way to hate. And I can't, can you imagine what it does to your whole being when all you do is hate? I know myself when I'm angry, how it affects me physically. I can't imagine what it does to them too. So yes, I don't have to allow people to hate me. I mean, I can't stop them. I can't stop people from hating me. But at the same time, you have to look at them in a different lens. You have to look at them with the compassion that they're not going to be going someplace. We have to make do well for them, that they'll be granted Hidayah. I know that's hard. I mean, you're probably saying, oh, easy for her to say, she's white. And it is easy. I understand that too. I accept that. I can't imagine what it is to have have to heal from generational hatred towards me as a person only because of the color of my skin. I can't imagine. And I apologize for all the times that maybe I didn't stand up for people when I didn't know any better, but I can't imagine. So it must be very difficult. But at the same time, that when I first came to Humanity, I saw this and I was listening to how the scenario of our history as Muslim has been changed by people. And I started to think, why would that happen? I mean, Allahu Alam. But why would it happen? I think because we're told this life is a test, that African American people are being tested to be strong, because Islam was probably going to rise from the West on the backs of African American people. I truly believe that you're going to be the torchbearers and you have to be strong for this test to do this. I don't know, Allahu Alam. It's just how I thought of it. But I know for sure posting saying that all white people are bad, white people are the devils, etc. Because I know that Caucasian Muslims in Europe, the European Muslims have been there for centuries and they're Caucasian. We have to be very careful to condemn another believer, to hurt the heart of a believer. And anyway, I'm rambling on now. And maybe I pray I haven't offended anybody. It's never my intention. I love this community so much that I don't want to ever hurt. I want to help the community. I want to be part of this community and understand more so I can teach other white people.
No, alhamdulillah, you spoke your truth. We appreciate you, alhamdulillah. So Sister Fatima, Queen of the British Virgin Islands. I'm particularly interested in like Prejudice, where you located, because like I'm not really familiar. Like, what is the race makeup there? Like, primarily who?
Well, we have people from different countries, islands that are here, but in the Muslim community, it is mostly people from the Arab countries and the Caribbean countries. So we have not really experienced, what America is experiencing. One is because, we don't assemble that much. It's mostly the men who comes out to the mosque. It's mostly the men who comes out into the community. The women, they're at home. And that is their culture, and we respect that. So when it comes to prejudice, we don't see that much here. And then again, I'm not a person who's out there much, so I won't really experience that much. But then, I go with what the sisters are saying, and I understand what they're saying. I sympathize with what they have to experience. But there's that much that an individual can take, Patience is something that we all would try to inculcate, but how much can you take? How much can you take? There's a time would come that you would say, well, it's time for me to get off the bus. Some people would say, well, it's time for me to retaliate. Retaliate is not the best thing, So again, as I said, I haven't experienced much of it, even though I came from Guyana straight here. I've never experienced even racism in my country back home. But I'm always like a home girl, a town girl, so I don't be out there to experience that, Mm-hmm. And I have I personally would say I have a lot of patience, but I can understand looking at the news, and I can understand hearing from the sisters, what it is. It is heart-rending, and especially from Muslims. Coming from Muslims, that is so difficult. That is so difficult. That's not our teaching. If we are following the deen as we should, we're following the best of the best, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, why should there be hate? Why should there be hate? We are one ummah. We should help each other. No hate. I just hate the word hate.
Hate the word hate. We should put down a t-shirt. That sounds like a nice slogan. Hate the word hate.
Yeah.
Okay. We've reached the halftime portion of our show. So now Sister Fatima, the Queen of Toronto, Canada, is going to do some some promo real quick.
Mashallah, that's awesome.
I'm always taken aback when I see that, man. It's fantastic, mashallah. Wow. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, that's I don't even know how to come back after that commercial break. You know?
I know it.
Yeah, mashallah.
I don't know what happened to Sister Joanne.
I don't know. Inshallah, she'll sign back on.
Maybe she had a power outage.
Yeah. One of the probably the biggest with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of the many miracles he had with primarily the Quran, one of the most noble acts of clemency, love, and compassion is at the conquest of Mecca. And we derive so many benefits and lessons from that. After being persecuted, driven out of his homeland, people trying to kill him, those things. He said, "I'm fired. You can't fire me. Temptations for life. What about that promise, Otis, huh?" And then seeing this remarkable display of clemency, love, and compassion and forgiveness, and letting your enemies go free. So this is something that we always draw on as inspiration when we're faced with prejudice, and hatred and discrimination, and it's something that we need to keep in mind. And in these times, especially with the recent presidency of Donald Trump, where he was, throwing around the idea of deporting Muslims, and it caused quite an uproar. And I think it should have been where it draws closer together. And I'm seeing glimpses of it, because I've been partnering with a lot of organizations lately, and and I'm not particularly like trying to like have my story told, but it's just that people are reaching out, and now they are concerned with basically what's going on with African American indigenous Muslims, what's going on in the inner cities. Now they want to talk about poverty and how they can help, and I think we are actually now having to counter some of the prejudices that we've allowed to affect us as Muslims, and so it's a good thing. So as as this platform is about the oceans of wisdoms that we have from our elders, what do you think that we can do as Native Muslims, indigenous Muslims, with our immigrant community to reach out to them better so we can empower ourselves? Because Islam is a religion of empowerment. It's a religion of action. I was going to ask you to put this back up. So 4 important qualities of a believer is mercy, forgiveness, patience, and forbearance. And so we always have to work on activating these qualities, because as we are able to implement them in our lives, and we spread them to others, and this is how you win the hearts of people. When the Prophet ﷺ, that when he conquered Mecca, people started coming in droves. The delegations started accepting Islam by the multitudes because they heard about this great man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What advice that you all have? Like, what can we better do as Native Muslims and indigenous Muslims who often counter Muslims who still, I wouldn't say are necessarily prejudiced against us, but still may be reluctant to kind of like partner with us. What would be your advice? So the Queen of the British Virgin Islands, you can go ahead and expound on that, inshallah.
What I think can happen is we should try to organize community services, workshops, get the youths involved, and try to work together.
Mm-hmm.
Just try to work together. Show what the deen is all about, and interact.
Okay, Sister Fatima, the Queen of Canada. Now this is very interesting because I know America is a different kind of environment, but just being being a convert and being white, what kind of responsibility? I mean, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but what kind of responsibility do you feel as like in offsetting people where because we all have a tendency to not like necessarily be prejudiced, but like to kind of stick to our own kind. Like, so, black people, we somewhere we're going to try to, be with black people. And if you white, you see a white Muslim, you're going to connect with them based on race, not necessarily that it's being prejudiced or anything, but, and sometimes we are tasked with, making sure that we repel things that might creep up. Like, say for instance, with black folks, we be like, white Muslim, we don't know about them, or the foreigners, or we might talk about Pakistanis and stuff like that. So how much do you have to feel like you should step in when you hear these kind of things that that are un-Islamic? And just because, because it's not, a Muslim can do things un-Islamic. They can say things that are out of, and we always in violation of the beautiful sunnah of the Prophet Islam in some way or another. So, like, how do you feel like when you may have to step in when these things come up? Do you feel like a responsibility to do that, or?
Yes, I feel a huge responsibility. I don't seek out other white people very often. I actually seek out black people more than anything. I've been that way since I became Muslim. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, you one of us on the low. You just can't,
I don't know. That's the way Allah made me. Alhamdulillah. But when I'm in a masjid and I see a space like this between a black Muslim and another Muslim that's non-black, I just, it sets something off in me. I usually come up and I push them together. There's that aggressiveness again coming out, but inshallah, I can use it for something good. I say, come on, this is not what we're about. We're supposed to be shoulder to shoulder, no spaces in between. And I do force that. When I come to a masjid and I see black people, I always extend my hand to them. I always do. I always do try to make them feel well. Not that I just do them, but I will head there first.
Yeah.
And then I go to the other sisters. That's just something about me that I do that because I know what it feels like to be on the outside looking in. And I don't want anybody else to feel that way, especially any of my sisters.
Yeah, it's very important. Oftentimes when I'm at the masjid, I try to make it all inclusive, especially at Jumu'ah. I encourage brothers make sure that you hug and go out of your way to, greet a brother that you normally don't talk to or you haven't seen since last week. And, introduce yourself to brothers you don't know. Many times people won't come around and, because they don't feel like they're connected. We have a responsibility to make people feel connected. You know what I mean? And then I also, when I go to other, masajid, I usually travel around to a few of them for, as a guest speaker for Jumu'ah. I try to, sometimes I have brothers with me. And in some experiences, like they'll greet me because of the imam, but the people I'm with, they won't give them the same kind of courtesy. So I try to make it my business. Like if I'm with a brother, especially if a brother like he might be of a darker hue, I try to like highlight him. You know, I like to make like he's the sheikh. So I'll do something like we'll just be laughing and talking, and then when people see us, they'll think that he's the guy. You know what I mean? So then they'll see him in a different light because sometimes people, they still have these kind of reservations. So like you don't make it about me because I'm the imam, and then this person is with me. You don't know him, so you don't give them the same kind of energy. You know what I mean? So those are little things, little subtleties. I think that help us because we do need, we need a lot of work in dealing with each other as far as overcoming our prejudices and our discriminatory practices against each other, and make sure that we have a united front because we are dealing with a lot of people. Even though Islam is growing, a lot of people are becoming more receptive to the deen. There's still that element of like hardcore prejudice and discrimination and bias against us, and so we have a lot of work to counter it, inshallah ta'ala. So, and of course, we're doing this message for people who will watch this later. Either Muslim or non-Muslim. We work together because humanity is a big part of it, and we're supposed to be the best examples of what humanity is supposed to look like because we have the best human that ever was created. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Follow his example. We're supposed to. There's supposed to be some type of change or some type of impact when we come in contact with people. So, alhamdulillah. So how about far as elders, I mean, one of the great things about people when they reach a certain age, you just understand that that there are some things that's not even worth your time, and you're not going to give your energy to that because it has no benefit. So have you all in your experiences, what would you say to like younger people who may another kind of prejudice, like young against old, you know what I mean? Where people, younger people, and we mentioned this previously, they might not have the same kind of respect and honor that younger people have for elders, back in the day. And sometimes, we find people not communicating with the elders, not making themselves available for service, and sometimes not even talking to them in a respectful manner that they've earned as being elders. So what will you all say to the young people, if you've experienced this or if potentially if it could happen, like what would be your advice? Queen, Miss Joanne, you still on the, you must be 30,000 feet up in the sky or something, bad connection. Yeah, them private planes will do that.
I missed the last portion of your discussion. It dropped me again.
Okay, yeah, we basically were saying, another prejudice that that I've seen, and you may have all experienced, is that the elder versus the youth, and as one of the comments says that some of the elders competing with the younger generation and making enemies of the young folks. And I've seen this where the elders would be like, they'd be dismissive of young people in their situations and not taking them where they at. And maybe sometimes the elders have the tendency to be like, okay, well, when I was younger, we didn't do things like that, and not really understanding where they are in the situations and their upbringing. So how do we kind of bridge that gap? Like, what advice would you have as an elder, to young people who may be listening? Like how they should treat you.
Well, with respect, because I'm going to also treat them with love and respect. But also listen. What we have to do is listen to what the younger ones are actually saying. We have to listen. And once we listen, then try and relate to them on the level that they're at. There's some that are on a higher level than others. But once we listen to what they're really saying and then relate back to them on that level, we also need to just express to them, that we're not saying that what you're saying is not valid. I'm giving you examples from what I've experienced because I've lived through that life that you're talking about. Maybe different situations, but I speak with you out of love and also out of experience. And this is what I want to share with you. And if you can deal with them on that level where they're calm enough to just listen to what you have to say, then if there's no positive response or agreeing with you at that particular moment, at least you've given them food for thought that later on that they can think about. I know even when I was growing up, I always thought, the elders were, they're just so old fashioned. We all think that when we're younger, that they're just so old fashioned. And I had to go back later though and bring it up again. And that's what I call food for thought because I knew that elder was giving me advice based on love, based on affection, based on wanting the best for me. So I had to bring that food for thought back up again and listen and work it out in my mind. And then finally come to the conclusion they're right. They're absolutely right. But we have to be in a position to allow ourselves to listen to what the younger ones really have to say. We have to listen, not just judge. First, listen, and then give them something to think about and use for thought. Because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to agree with you at that particular moment. So you have some that will, but the majority probably will not, especially if it's something that they deeply believe, is true. But we both, the young and the elders, we both have to listen and always give them that food for thought after you have listened to them.
Alhamdulillah. Sister Fatima of British Virgin Islands.
Well, here in the Virgin Islands, in the British Virgin Islands, we do not have much kids that comes out to the masjid. Take for instance, on a Fridays, sometimes it's just I alone or two other sisters with myself, and that's on a constant basis. Mostly the young males would be, of course, with the men. So personally, I feel that in order for you to get respect, you have to give it. You have to give respect in order to gain respect. And with the kids that we have to deal with these days, you just have to be patient with them, know how to speak with them, know how to interact with them. And from doing that, you might get a better response, from them. So it's kind of difficult here for me to really compare or, explain what goes on here where prejudice and stuff like that goes on, because it's not something that I encounter here.
Okay. Sister Fatima, Queen of Canada.
I think that when reaching out to the youth, you have to find a bond. You have to create a bond with them. Like with me, when I want to approach a youth, I try to observe them for a little bit and then try to find something that I have in common with them, that I can reach out to them on that level, whether it's deen, whatever. Like I find a lot of youth that go to the masjid, they're definitely far more advanced than me in the Quran. So I always ask them to teach me. So to teach me the Quran, because I don't know Arabic. And that really opens up the doors. They're like, wow, an elder doesn't know how to do something, and that makes them feel that they have something to offer. Because a lot of times our youth don't feel that they have anything to offer, that we're taking control over everything. We take control of the masjid, and we don't give them some leeway, which is probably, there's reasons for it too, but we have to allow our youth to make mistakes. because we didn't learn by not making mistakes. I don't know about you. I made tons and I still am. But that's how we learn. And we have to realize that our youth are going through the same thing. Yes, we probably want to pull them, and say, no, you can't do that. But the youth that are going to the masjid, alhamdulillah, they're in the masjid for one, that they're there. The youth on the streets, I don't know. I really don't know. That's something I pray for constantly, that we find a way to reach our youth on the streets. The ones with the guns, the one with the drugs, the ones that are lost. There's a lot of, so the only thing I can think for that is just lots of dua for them.
All right. So as we're coming to the close of the show, I have one more question. I would like to know, for those who apply to it, who applies to, like, how would you rate the a lot of white folks now, especially in America, are becoming more they're less as bigoted and prejudiced as they used to be, and some of their their younger generation, they may not have, of course they have white privilege, but they haven't been, it's not as hard as it's been, in the 50s and 60s, where segregation and Jim Crow laws and stuff like that. So a lot of those kids are not growing up with that hardcore prejudice. So how do you, the pulse of, and I'm just talking about just white folks, non-Muslim, because when you think of prejudice, that's who usually comes to mind. They kind of
the Karens.
Yeah, they kind of spawn this kind of stuff, and of course then there's counter prejudice from other races. But how would you rate overall the climate as far as them being prejudiced against us overall? Have you think that the bigotry and stuff has declined, or is it increased, or is it just kind of Miss Joanne, you go first in case you might go out. We want to get your wisdom.
Okay.
You might be traveling through some clouds or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I for some segments, I don't think it has declined. When you get to the rednecks and all of the KKK and all, I don't think there's been a decline there. They're recruiting younger and younger people now to those organizations. It's just like I said before. Now they're more open with it. Before it was hidden, and I don't see it really going away for certain segments. That hatred is still being taught. It's being taught from a young age, and they go through life all from there trying to recruit younger people to their organization. So I don't think that there's been a decline in their activity. I think there's been more activity now, and they're bolder in everything now. It could be because of the climate, we're in, especially when we have leadership, say like Trump. So it was like an open book, an open season, an open invitation for them to just come on out and show who you are. So we saw and we see more of it now. For a while, so for some years there we didn't see it. It wasn't, that bold, but now it is. But for the most part, there has been an improvement. But we still have those organizations, I guess, that will always be there. And we have to be mindful of it.
Okay, Sister Fatima, a British Virgin Islands royalty.
I must add this. Tortola is also known as nature's little secret. So I guess the secret of racism is hidden here unless somebody comes in and exposes theirs. So it's not, I have not experienced it here. I have not experienced it here.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's what we hope to spread around the world, where it's just, to get rid of this disease. It's been a disease, and unfortunately it's still affecting people. Sister Fatima, what would you say, just in your experiences, Sister Fatima of Canada, royalty?
I think in Canada, it's more hidden than it is in the States. Maybe because there's less African people here, or they're just staying away from the mainstream. I don't know, but I do know it exists. I've talked to some African brothers in the building that I'm currently in, and one guy talks about he gets beat up quite frequently. Now, I don't know if it's the crowds he hangs out or it's just as a person walking down the street. But they tell me that there is a lot of hatred towards African Canadians, I guess you would call them, or are they still African American? I don't know. But also, recently, the author of one of the books that Amanda Naeem Abdullah is teaching in the Black Lessons was doing a tour of Ontario, and he came to the city I'm in. I didn't know about it till after the fact. I belong to 5 or 6 groups of Muslims on Facebook for this area, and not one of them had it advertised. And so it kind of led me to believe, yes, it's there. It's really there. Because I would have loved to have gone. Like, I'm surprised that I never heard about it. No one talked about it. So it told me something about the main masjids here that are running the show. It told me a lot.
MashaAllah. Well, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq in overcoming any kind of prejudice, racism that's directed towards us or that is within our community. And we ask Allah to rid us of it. I mean, and make us people who unite our hearts upon bir and taqwa, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded in the Quran. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. He said, and then you unite upon righteousness and piety, and you do not unite on sin and transgression. So we hope that will be the outcome as we go forward as a community, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us to unite our hearts. This is a great show, alhamdulillah. I thank you all for your presence and your input and your valuable gems that you've shared with us. Sister Fatima, the British Virgin Island royalty, we are very pleased with your presence. We hope that you will, consider being a regular on the show. Miss Joanne, you just be graceful as you know how to do it. I mean, that's not hard for you. We appreciate it. And Sister Fatima of Canadian royalty, we really thank you for putting this all together. This is really beautiful. I'm honored to be a part of this platform. Thank you all who are listening and taking the time to listen to our beautiful queens, impart, knowledge and wisdom to us and share their stories, and not be afraid to, talk on this platform and just be open with us. We thank you all. We thank the people who will listen in the future, inshallah. And we will end with dua. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka anta sami'ul alim. Oh Allah, accept this from us. Verily you are the hearing and seeing. Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive us for our shortcomings and our faults, and to make us the people, the inhabitants of Jannah. Ameen. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wow.